let's see. So we've been reading about how Maharaj Parikshit receives the age of Kali. And we also see that for a... Okay, now Lokadaksha is here. Thank you very much. It takes me time to get all of this. Yeah, you have to share the screen.
Yeah, where are we though?
We are on, I think, text 15, if I remember. Yeah, we did all this. Yeah, we did all this. Let me take you.
Oh, this is a beautiful verse.
Yeah, we did this.
You did this also?
Yeah, we did all this. Yeah, we actually we left off over here where Dharma is questioning Mother Earth. So text 19. Or we actually did 19 also. So check text 20.
You're running at jet speed.
Yeah, when you're not there, I
run.
I run, yes.
What chapter? Hare Krishna, Mataji.
Yes, Hare Krishna, Anita. Yeah, we're just going to share the chapter. Just give us a minute.
Thank you.
So
Chapter 16, text 19.
Here it is, yeah.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudire Nashta Prayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttam Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Nashtaki. Okay.
Pade nyunam sochasi meka padam atmanam va vishalir bhokshamanam aho suradin hitayagya bhagan praja utasvin magavatya varsati.
I've lost my 3 legs and I'm standing on one only. Are you lamenting for my state of existence? Or are you in great anxiety because henceforward the unlawful meat eaters will exploit you? Or are you in a sorry plight because the demigods are now bereft of their share of sacrificial offerings because no sacrifices are being performed at present? Or are you grieving for living beings because of their sufferings due to famine and drought?
Wow. So some heavy symptoms of Kali Yuga are listed here. Mother Earth, first of all, she says that I am standing on just one leg. And what does it mean?
Dharma is standing.
Dharma is standing on one leg. So what does it mean for Dharma? There are 4 legs of Dharma, which is truthfulness, austerity, cleanliness, and compassion or mercy. And in Satya Yuga, which is the golden age, all the 4 legs are there. And subsequently in the next age, Treta Yuga, 1 leg goes away. And the next leg, another leg goes away. So in Kali Yuga, the only leg that is standing is remaining of Dharma is truthfulness, which is also rapidly going away.
It's a very weak leg.
It's a very weak leg. I mean, sometimes you wonder that how come that is the leg that is remaining.
I guess the only reason why that leg probably is remaining is because people still get outraged. Like, for example, you have a president or, whatever leader, and he lies on oath.
That's true.
That becomes like, okay, that's reason enough for you to be now removed.
Yes.
It's not because of maybe, the other acts that a person is engaging in. That's all right.
That's all right.
But, you should have at least not told a lie.
How can you cheat in a relationship and how can you lie?
Yeah.
So that still has some value.
Yeah.
The next point, there is unlawful meat eaters will exploit you. The word that is used here is vrishale, unlawful meat eaters. And Prabhupada writes very... okay. So anyways, he's saying that this meat eating, as we can see, is increasing rapidly in this Kali Yuga. And meat eating has very severe consequences. Even now, they're finding out for the environment. A bulk of the carbon emissions happen from cattle raising. And for cutting the forest for cattle raising. And so much water and so much grains are grown just to feed the cattle. And that produces an enormous amount of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. So that karma, you can see, you can physically see the karma surrounding the whole planet.
Like this COVID thing, right?
Yeah.
If you think about it, right? I mean, this was a discussion that did take place.
Yeah.
That when animals are slaughtered, then it manifests in so many different ways.
So many different ways.
Yeah, we have no idea sometimes even.
Yeah.
That the merciless killing of animals is not something. Yeah.
And I was reading somewhere that it takes like 16 pounds of grains to raise one pound of meat.
Yeah.
And the carbon emissions from the cattle raising is even more than the total carbon emissions from all the vehicles on the world in the world.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
It's horrifying actually. And then the other point that is mentioned is all the yagyas will stop. So people will not be interested in performing any kind of yagya or sacrifice for a higher purpose. In other ways, people will become very self-centered because sacrifice means you're acting for somebody else's pleasure. The sacrifice will go away, and natural calamities will happen due to famine and drought, and then all other. We can see in California right now. First they had famine, drought, a drought, and now they are having excessive rain, so which is causing landslides and then floods and things like that. Arakshamana striya urvibalan sochasyatho purushadir vivartan vacham devim brahmakule kukarmani abramanyaryajakule kulagrayan.
Are you feeling compunction for the unhappy women and children who are left forlorn by unscrupulous persons? Or are you unhappy because the goddess of learning is being handled by brahmanas addicted to acts against the principles of religion? Or are you sorry to see that the brahmanas have taken shelter of administrative families that do not respect Brahminical culture? Everyone is being talked about here. The unscrupulous men, the teachers or the so-called religious people in this world who are exploiting the faith of the masses by acting in ways. And this is so true that, people all over the world are so disappointed and brokenhearted because of the actions of the faithful more than the faithless. And so, in the name of faith, so much is done, which is so discouraging and which can be so faith breaking, right? And so, mother, all these things that and the unhappy women and the children, the exploitation of women hasn't stopped.
Is unprecedented.
It's unprecedented.
Growing more and more.
It's growing more and more. Even in the face, we're talking about equality and we're talking about freedom and all of that. But in the midst of all that, we have never had a generation or a world where women and children are just left to fend for themselves with very little support and very little respect,
Yeah.
And so somehow or the other, and it's very interesting that this is all these things are being brought up, that these teachers, these brahmanas, the priest who are taking all this money and trying to live a good life, right? Or the brahmanas who have taken shelter of administrative families, all these big, rich people, the kings, who do not care.
Yeah, right now the brahmanas of today's day and age are the think tanks and the and then the other people who influence the Congress. What are they called?
Lobbyists.
And then they are basically deciding in which direction the administration will go. And what are they saying? The goddess of learning is education has become such a big business now. All the universities, you'll see they have a bigger business in real estate than they earn more money in real estate than in actually education. And education is just like become a side business for them so you can see how the whole world is becoming topsy.
Prabhupada uses a very nice line here. He says, education and bad character go ill together, but such things will run parallel.
Wow.
So, we never ever put education and good character together. We think that our only job in educating people is to give them a degree so that they can go and they can get a job and they can earn money.
Yeah, in earlier times, so the teachers, they were made sure that they had the highest character and highest behavior. Nowadays, you can find professors who drink and who have illicit relations with others, but nobody cares about that. They think, well, it's okay as long as they can
do a
good job of teaching, then they're fine because through that they are also transmitting the values they imbibe. Kim Shatra Bandhun Kalinopasrishtan Rashtrani Vaterava Avaropitani Itastato Vasana Panavasa Snana Vayayon Mukha Jiva Lokam. It's interesting because at that time, these symptoms were not there. For them to be able to see, we think, okay, I can relate to this because we are seeing this in abundance right now. But in those days, these symptoms were not there. So for them to be able to foresee what's going to happen is quite interesting.
The so-called administrators are now bewildered by the influence of this age of Kali, and thus they have put all state affairs into disorder. Wow, they could really see today. You know, are you now lamenting this disorder? Now, the general populace does not follow the rules and regulations for eating, sleeping, drinking, mating, etc., and they're inclined to perform such anywhere and everywhere. Are you unhappy because of this?
Wow.
So this was the culture. I mean, we see this, like, one of the complaints that a lot of parents have is, the fact that children wake up at any time. There's no time to wake up. There's no time to sleep. They stay up till 2:30, and they go to sleep when it's actually time to wake up.
There's no regulation for eating, like eating at odd times. Completely messes up the body, and then they have all these different severe symptoms.
Ayurveda speaks about that one of the biggest things that we can do for ourselves is to eat on time. And how we have our own body clock, and that body clock has to, if it works according to that particular time it's supposed to sleep and eat, that's how the body can stay healthy, right? Drinking, mating, there's no regulation. It's whatever goes, and this is the reason why we have like a part of the reason when if you don't, for example, follow good hygiene for the body, then your body is going to get sick. Same thing for the mind. If the mind is not engaged in good mental hygiene, then we will suffer from mental disorders too.
And that's increasing so much in the world.
That's increasing, definitely. Like all these hormones even, right? They have a certain, they like, for example, you have a certain hormone, cortisol, it goes up at this time. Now we are messing up with all of that because we're not following any particular regulation.
And then once people's body is messed up, then they go on drugs, some kind of medicines, which further mess them up. So it's like a vicious cycle.
This is why Kali Yuga, here Prabhupada's last line, therefore by the influence of the age of Kali, everywhere, politically, socially, or religiously, everything is topsy-turvy. And therefore for the sane man, it is all regrettable. So, it's
basically, these verses are basically a series of regrets.
These are all, and we can see that, right? I mean, I feel so sorry for even the next generation. Like, and I know I probably sound like an old person, but really, these kids, their life is actually centered around a screen. And what they're watching on these screens and what they have access to, we have very little control over that now. And it's hard enough for a grown-up person, what to speak of a tender mind of a 13-year-old who is exposed to stuff that they should not be exposed to at that age, or for any age that matters, for that matter. But yet, here we are right now dealing with Facebook, and then, all the, which we didn't even know, all the different risks that we have, lent ourselves to, but what to speak, what to speak of the next generation and the next generation who have no idea how their brains, the tiny, tender brains, are being manipulated by corporate interest, right?
Yeah, it is.
Isn't it?
I think those four things, eating, sleeping, interesting, Prabhupada uses the word drinking instead of defending here. Eating, sleeping,
drinking and
mating. Normally it's eating, sleeping, defending and mating. But here he is using drinking. I guess you could see that how drinking is becoming such a common phenomena. Drinking means drinking alcohol. It's becoming such a common phenomena. But I guess these are, in the Vedic culture, everything was kind of regulated. It didn't mean that people didn't have their choice, but people made finer choices. They were, sometimes we think that making any choice makes me really independent and powerful. But making stupid choices actually takes away more and more choices from us. And we become like totally powerless. We become disempowered. But these people who follow these rules and regulations for health and better mind, they actually they were more and more empowered.
Yeah, that's what you have more freedom.
Yeah.
Text 23. I think we can continue.
Yadvambate bhuri bharavatara kritavatara hare dharitri antarhitasya smarati vishrishta karmani nirmana vilambitani.
O Mother Earth, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Hari, incarnated himself as Lord Shri Krishna just to unload your heavy burden. All his activities here are transcendental and they cement the path of liberation. You are now bereft of his presence. You're probably now thinking of those activities and feeling sorry in their absence. So now he's talking about Krishna, saying Krishna left, so that's why you're unhappy. That's why you must be unhappy. Text 24.
And that's why all these symptoms are appearing actually. Idam mama chakshvatavadi moolam vasundhare yena vikarshitasi kalena vate balinam baliyasa surarchitam kim hitam ambashobhagam.
Mother, you're the reservoir of all riches. Please inform me of the root cause of your tribulations by which you have been reduced to such a weak state. I think that the powerful influence of time, which conquers the most powerful, might have forcibly taken away all your fortune, which was adored even by the demigods.
And I think when we think about this conversation between Maharaj Parikshit and
this is Dharma and Earth.
This is Dharma and Earth.
Yeah.
But anyways, yeah, Dharma is asking Earth.
Yeah.
But this conversation can be had between any living entity and Mother Earth. That caring for Mother Earth just doesn't mean caring for the environment. Sometimes we just pick one thing, but it's caring for everything that actually affects our Earth, and when it's affected in one way, then the effect comes out in so many other ways. Dharani Uvacha. Dharani, it's a beautiful name for Earth. Dharani means one who holds. Dhar means to hold.
Dhar like dharma, right?
Dri. It comes from the root word dri, which means to hold or support or provide a ground on it, literally. So Dharani, it actually holds everybody. Bhavan hi veda tatsarvam yanmam dharma anuprichyasi chaturvi vartase yena pade loka sukhavahe.
The earthly deity in the form of a cow thus replied to the personality of religious principles in the form of a bull. O Dharma, whatever you have inquired from me shall be known to you. I shall try to reply to all these questions. Once you two were maintained by your four legs and you increased happiness all over the universe by the mercy of the Lord. Just you missed this point. Actually, I made this point, like this is actually from Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur. He says that this actually was not seen by Maharaj Parikshit directly. He actually saw this in his yogic vision. Because of his deep, he was in a trance. And so this was not seen by ordinary people, that Dharma personified and cow personified, earth personified as cow. But Maharaj Parikshit could see it because of his deep meditational vision.
Okay.
Yeah.
Satyam socham daya shanti tyaga santosha arjavam.
I think it's 10:30 already.
Yeah, so we should stop here.
Yeah, so we can just read this one paragraph before this, the previous verse. Okay. Here Prabhupada is saying purport. So we have one purport at least that we have read. The principles of religion are laid down by the Lord himself, and the executor of such laws is Dharamraj or Yamaraj. Such principles work fully in the age of Satyuga. In the Treta Yuga, they're reduced by a fraction of 1/4. In the Dwapar Yuga, they're reduced to 1/2. In the Kali Yuga, they're reduced to 1/4, gradually diminishing to the 0 point, and then devastation takes place. Happiness in the world depends proportionately on the maintenance of the religious principles, individually or collectively. The best part of valor is to maintain the principles despite all kinds of odds. Thus, one can be happy during the span of life and ultimately return to Godhead. So here Prabhupada is acknowledging the fact that to maintain principles or to live a principle-centered life requires taking a stand. And it means that one is going to face some resistance and that one is going to face odds. But if one can live a principle-centered life, even in the midst of this topsy-turvy Kali Yuga, it's not easy. You're actually swimming upstream. And every time you turn around, you realize that, oh, I have to now adjust. I have to now accommodate for my life choices because it's not the usual norm. But if one can do that, then one will be happy during the span of life, and then at the end one can go back to Godhead. So even if one thinks, oh, what am I going to get? Like I haven't seen afterlife. But the good thing about living this life is in this very life, you will see that your life will be untouched by the effects of Kali Yuga. So one doesn't have to wait for next life. So we'll stop here and take reflections, questions, comments.
Hare Krishna Mataji. So I was thinking your point which you just mentioned about this last. So when we are in today's world, we may be trying to follow certain things, but the others are not following, and that brings you in a stage where you also get tempted not to follow
Anywhere you can go.
and manipulate a little bit.
I can take you one day.
Yes, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking you may be following, but the others are not following the rules and regulations, and that brings a temptation in you to go in the same direction. But it feels like whether we follow or don't follow, in both the case, we are losing, because if we follow the rules and regulations, it brings kind of a disparity, like why others are not following, why I should follow. And if we like follow the go against the rules and regulation, then also like there is a sense that comes, there is guilt that comes, why did I do that? So what is the balanced way? That's what I'm trying to figure out.
I didn't understand why by following.
You're going against the right. The others are not following.
Because others are not following. So you feel that there is some difficulty. Are you saying that there is difficulty when we try to follow a lifestyle which is followed by the rest of the world? Is that
correct?
Is that
I'm going against the stream, and then it's always challenging. It's extremely difficult to go against the stream. It's not easy.
No, it's
ultimately
not easy.
In a short term it's not easy, but maybe in a long run we can see its benefit. But
definitely. I mean, the temptation is just, part of the mind being attracted to, and we have all kinds of desires. But as we, that's why it's important to take steps, baby steps. And one thing, we have seen in our life as well as in the lives of so many others, once you take a step, this feels so much more natural. If you feel so much better with just every lifestyle change that you make, you never want to go back. Like I never want to go back to my old life. Never. I mean, never in a million lifetimes. Why? Because this just feels that this is big, and it's true. It's closer to our real dharma because it's closer to our real nature. So that's why this just feels like the most natural thing.
It's like when somebody grows up on eating junk food, and then they offer something healthy to eat, then the mind rebels. I don't want to eat that. Just like children, they don't want to eat something healthy. So, but the balance is, I guess the need for balance comes because we are exposed to this world, and we are also transitioning. We are also transitioning from that world to this world. So once that transition becomes more and more complete, then our discomfort goes away. And people also, when they see that example, then for them, they also become comfortable. But regardless, I guess it is definitely an uphill task in living in this material world, and you just have to keep trying.
Yeah. I mean, it's not whenever like we mentioned, living a principle-centered life means that you have to take a stand, and sometimes you have to face temptations. Sometimes you have to face opposition. Sometimes you have to face judgment, perhaps even. But what we have seen is that over a period of time, people really come to appreciate your life choices. They really do. I mean,
because they will run their full circle, and then they realize there's nothing else in this world.
Yeah, it doesn't work.
So then they look for a real solution.
So.
Yeah, Madhu, thank you. But in a short run, it's really like challenging. It's not easy. It's like you have to deal with external world, you have to deal with your internal world. So there is a churn that's happening, and I mean, you need to come to a stable stage.
Definitely. And that's why the association of devotees, it helps tremendously. This is the only way that we can find the strength, because, we can see that, we're all trying, and it's, and we can share notes of how do you manage this and what do you do about this. And that way we derive strength from each other. So anybody else? Yes, Martha.
I was, thank you so much. I was just, to add to that, I was going to say, I think understanding why people want you to do the other thing, like, I know, like, my family doesn't understand vegetarianism and things like that. And so it's like, but I understand where they're coming from because they, ignorance or, just things like that. And so I think the understanding or makes it a little bit easier to have that separation and say like, well, I'm doing this and it's, you know, and to kind of not feel like you're being pulled by, you know, and I think also understanding that these versus the Kali Yuga, like just understanding like how strong those things are and understanding like, okay, I understand that people are getting pulled by these things, but we're so fortunate that we're reading these things and we are learning and we're able to separate ourselves.
Such a very nice point, Martha. Thank you so much. And it's true, you know, that our family members, our friends, you know, they'll make choices. And one thing I've always found that helps a lot is that if we don't become too militant with them as well, like if you just let them live their life and respect their life choices, and then that also makes it easy for them to respect our life choices. So at least that unnecessary conflict is then hopefully not there as much.
Yeah, once we become secure in our own path and understanding, then we are also not so like on a head-on collision with them. For everything that they may say to us, or we may try to correct them. Those are the things, or there's a subtle judgment that sometimes goes unspoken. So once we are like get rid of those feelings, then people also see that we understand where everybody wants to be understood. Even people who are not following the right path in our eyes, they also want to be understood.
And at some level, they do know. But then, you know, they're also uncomfortable with their own choices. Like I have, I have family members who engage in many different activities, and when they feel that they have a safe space, then they reveal themselves and they say, yeah, I know that this is not right, but you know, I just what to do, you know, and then you can become their friend and sort of, you know, if they want to, at least you are their friend. And you know,
and I guess this is what we have learned from our spiritual teacher. That he's able to be friendly to anybody and have a conversation on so many different topics about, and he's interested in them. So once people see that we are interested in them and we are friendly to them, then they will open up.
Yes, Ridhima, go ahead.
For me, I think whenever I try to follow the principles, or whenever I try to be nice and try to be a Krishna conscious, then after some time I feel if I am in ego that I'm only the doing good things, I'm only the adjusting, I am the one who calling everyone, I am only the one who gathered the group. So that is my problem. So I want to try to get off and rid of this habit, but it's come subtle. I don't know, like I have an ego, but when I get upset, then only I realize that is my ego. But sometimes like in that ego, I pass the comment also because my eye is there. So nowadays I realize everything, but still I don't have a control on my mind and my tongue. So I want to control and understand that thing, how I can control myself. I always wanted to be a Krishna conscious every minute. So that I need a help in that.
Such a good Ridhima. Thank you so much. I think it's like every group has its own, hole in which they fall, right? And for practicing spiritualists, this is the biggest hole that we can fall into, which is judgment, pride, arrogance, holier than thou. I found, I am God's gift to mankind, the whole mindset, right? Look at me, I'm doing everything right. And, it's one of our biggest stumbling blocks that we have to be constantly mindful. And Prabhupada, he's so expert at this. He would sometimes say, he said, what's to be so proud about being a vegetarian? Even monkeys are vegetarians. So, the point is that, we can be proud about so many things that, look at me, I'm such a pure person and there's no one more pure and look at you. But the more we actually, a defining quality of a genuine spiritualist is that the more they practice spiritual life, the more they will become aware of their own insignificance and their own fallen nature. And so there is no question. If there is any pride, that means that somehow, bhakti hasn't touched them yet. Bhakti and pride, the two cannot stand together ever. They're completely like in opposite quality, right? So
we are just in the practicing stage. We are not actually in bhakti yet.
Yeah.
It's still trying to get there.
And the thing is that we can fall off the wagon at any moment. We can never take our position ever for granted that, oh, I've arrived. I'm here now. Look at me, you know. No, the mind is very tricky. Our desires are so deep and so strong. And so we always have to stay, you know, in a very humble place that no matter, I may know so much, but what is my realization? And then when we start looking at our realization, that's where we become humble, because we realize that I may know so much about being tolerant and humble and loving and this and that, but what's my real wealth? My real wealth might be very, very tiny.
And also to see that that I can learn from others too, even if they're not following a path of Krishna consciousness or bhakti. There are things that we can learn from anybody. And staying in that mindset allows us to see that guru in everybody.
Just yesterday, you know, I just love that story so much. You know, I want to really share it. So, you know, Krishna can speak through anyone. Like with Prabhupada, Krishna actually spoke through just a common person who told Prabhupada, why are you printing all these magazines? Write books, you know?
And that's how actually Prabhupada started writing books. Initially, he was just writing this
publishing pamphlets, right?
Pamphlets and Back to Godhead magazine.
And so just like that, yesterday we was listening to a lecture where Maharaj was making this point that how Bilva Mangal Thakur, that's another story, how he was instructed by a prostitute. And then he made this point that there was this person called Lal Babu, who was like this great, you know, zamindar in Bengal, landowner. And he treated one of his employees very, very badly. And to the point where he actually died. And the next day he went on this palanquin surrounded by his, you know, people and, you know, and this really whatever. And then as he was walking by the Ganga, there was this fisherman with his 5-year-old daughter. And this 5-year-old daughter, it was getting evening time. So she was telling her father in Bengali that Bella Hoigol.
Bella Holo.
Bella Holo. Let's go.
Bella Holo.
Let's go home. You know, like it's evening now, let's go home. And when he heard that, like, of course, you know, this means that he must have carried a lot of spiritual credit from his past life. He immediately, it just hit him like a bolt. And he thought, oh, it's evening, I should go home now. So he realized that actually his life also, he took it as an instruction and he let go of his family, his wealth, his whatever opulence he had, and he just left for Vrindavan. So the point is that any person, you know, whether it's our male, and then another thing that our spiritual master always tells us is that we have to really honor even our mailman, because we don't know, our mailman may be the spiritual master of our child someday. So we don't know who's who.
And anybody can actually, it may seem that somebody is not practicing right now, but we don't know, maybe a year from now or 2 years from now, that person can actually become even more advanced than us in spiritual life. So that potential is always there, because you never know how a living entity will turn around.
Yeah. That's such a good point, Ridhima. Thank you so much for bringing that out.
Thank you so much. It's clear to me. I will try to understand more.
Yeah.
That's good. You're picking on the finer point of practicing bhakti, and that's always good, because knowledge is easy to get, but to practice these finer points is very hard.
We can see that how difficult it is to say sorry. Right there, we can see, right, how difficult it is to acknowledge that I messed up. Anybody else?
Janet?
Yes, Shringar. Yeah, go ahead, Shringar.
Question: How do we fit tolerance and acceptance with all that we've heard?
I mean, that is tolerance and that is acceptance, right?
And
that
if people don't accept our choices, or if they're not tolerant towards our choices, then I mean, do we put our values up like a fence and then we make a choice that we can give in here and we will not give in there? Or how does that work?
Oh, okay.
How does tolerance and acceptance work in that sense?
I think that sometimes the issue is not about the value in question. Many times the issue is a deeper issue. You know, the reason why people put up a fight when we take a stand, any stand, it's because maybe in that stand they feel that they're not being validated. So when we start validating those people for, whoever they are, like one time Mukunda Maharaj told us this, he said that in order for you to reach out to anyone, you have to first appreciate them for who they are and what they are. So the more people feel appreciated and loved and accepted by us, and when we don't react to to them, then we create a safe space for them. And then, then perhaps, this is again something that may happen, and it does happen, that they'll become more accepting of our life choices, and maybe even support us in that. But at the same time, you're saying that should we then compromise, or should we accept, their version of it? No, I mean, no, in general, no. But at the same time, like one also has to use one's common sense, and one has to know that how to navigate that world so that it does not create any undue agitation. Like I'll give you an example that when I go back, like, I'll pick where I need to. So I won't compromise on the principle, but I might compromise a little bit on the details of how that manifests, because I know I'm only here for 2 days. So perhaps, I might make adjustments here and there. Like I think I've shared this before, that I'll try to, if my chanting, for example, might agitate someone, then I'll wake up even earlier than they wake up, and I'll finish my chanting so that it does not create any botheration to them. Or like Prabhupada, he was in a place, and they served him a dinner. They actually cooked this whole big dinner, and there was onion pieces there. And one of the disciples said, Prabhupada, there are onion pieces. Prabhupada, where are they? And he just kept removing the onion pieces out of that dish and just ate it. Now, of course, we don't make that a habit, but we also want to be gracious. And so we have to, it's a fine balance of what it means, and when people see us being, gentle and not so fanatical, then they also become appreciative. But at the same time, we should not be so gentle that we let go of all our principles and we just go with whatever is, being given to us. So somehow find that happy balance between holding on to our principles at the same time not being fanatical, I think works well. I don't know, Shringar, if you have any further thoughts on that.
Yeah, I mean, somebody asked me this question that how do we balance between tolerance and acceptance, and then being somebody just treating us like a doormat.
Oh.
Although
Yeah.
the answer that you gave previously was very helpful. I think I myself needed to hear that. But this is also another question.
Yeah, there is great strength in tolerance. I mean, it also depends on, the place from which we are tolerating. If you're tolerating from a place of, poor me, I'm just, that's tolerance that is actually not tolerance. And it'll very quickly, one will start to feel like a victim, and you'll erupt like a volcano. But, the way the Vaishnavas and the great spiritualists, how they tolerate is that because they are so full and because they are so strong, they are, and because their consciousness has been completely captivated by Krishna. Like you see Haridas Thakur, right? Or even Jesus Christ, like they're being, he's being beaten in 22 marketplaces. He's not feeling like a doormat, but instead there's so much strength there that, it's that even the perpetrator themselves, they are, they're bewildered, like what's going on here. So this is not coming from a place of weakness. And a person, when he's practicing that tolerance, is very well aware of their own strength. And so there is no sense of being exploited. You're actually, it's coming from a very different consciousness, not from a consciousness of a weakling, but rather from incredible courage and incredible strength. And so there is no question. And yet at the same time, one should only practice according to one's capacity. So, one should know, what is my capacity for tolerance? What is my capacity for acceptance? And then we build on that muscle. It's a muscle, this being able to tolerate is a muscle. and it'll expand, and you'll become stronger and stronger in your capacity, in your capability. And that happens as you chant, as you practice. And I've seen that every time you put aside your own false ego and you submit and you accept, you become equipped to do more the next time and the next time. Because you see, oh, I'm okay. It hurt, it stung a little bit, but I actually am better now. I'm happier now. So one has to do it gradually.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Anybody else? I think we are already way ahead of time, so maybe we'll stop here. Thank you so much.